Welcome to the Innovator Interview Series brought to you by CComp, where we help innovators deliver awesome. My name is Derek Jackson, and I'm meeting today with Jake Kyleman, as well as Todd Wilson from Vicaros. So let's go ahead and kick off the discussion just with introductions so our viewers can understand more about who you are. Jake, would you like to start?
Sure. Thanks, Derek. My name's Jake Kyleman. I'm a co-founder of Vicaros, electrical engineering background, but also a sailor, and that's really what helped get me into the business and also what introduced me to my co-founder, Todd.
Yeah, so I'm Todd Wilson, co-founder of Vicaros. I'm coming from a software engineering background and also an avid and passionate sailor, and which is how Jake and I met. And I lead the engineering efforts for software at Vicaros.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So let's talk a little bit about the company, how you're structured, and how you went from Vicaros just being an idea through to how it's evolved to the business it is today.
Yeah, it's been a real journey. So Todd and I met sailing together, and really the company came out of our own interests and needs as sailors to better understand our own performance. So the boat we were racing together is a high-performance catamaran, and we were the only boat of that type in the area we were sailing in. And so it was really difficult for us to gauge, are we doing well, are we doing poorly, where could we improve, where are there opportunities for us to go faster or improve the way we're sailing the boat without another reference point out there. And as engineers, we sort of knew that if we could measure and see the data live while we were on the water, that would allow us to gauge our performance. And so that was really the core idea behind the company is how do we take, all these great sensors and advances in technology that have happened over the past decade or so and turn that into something that you can use while you're sailing, that gives you that real-time feedback and also lets you collect data so you can analyze it when you come back off the water. So it started there. It originally started as something we were going to build just for ourselves, just to help improve our own sailing. And then it pretty quickly got out of control and turned into a company. And maybe, Todd, you can pick up the story from that point.
Yeah, so we started working on it in my basement, as a hobby project. And as we kept working on it and thinking of, what we're going to do and new ideas, our friends found out and they all wanted one. And then our sort of extended friends wanted one. And then we figured, well, we're putting in so much time. Maybe we should sort of test the waters with something kind of like a Kickstarter. And then that really blew up. And then we knew oh, now we really have to start a business. So
it's been a bit of a journey since then. And we're now, going from Todd's basement, we're now to a team of 8 people, and we're spread out across the US. So we're a full team. And that was something that we always wanted to support. I think, Todd and I each had the sort of personal experience of wanting to have that flexibility and being able to work, from different places or, choose your own working hours. But then with COVID coming along, it became even more of a necessity to do that. And while that's had its challenges, I think it's also been really great for us in that we've been able to hire some really talented engineers and sales and marketing folks and not had to worry about trying to find or get everybody to move to one specific location. So having that capability of having a fully distributed team is great. And because everybody is distributed, nobody's left out. Everybody's kind of on equal footing. We do, most of our work through Slack and Google Meet. And having that kind of be the baseline for the company has worked out, I think really well for us.
That's awesome. Thanks for the overview. What I love about what you guys said as well, and what I find and what we do at CComp is when you have an entrepreneur or a business that was born out of a passion, I feel like that creates a heightened degree of thoughtfulness and care when going through the product development journey, because you're not just developing the product then for some customer profile out there, you're developing the product almost for yourself, which is how you guys started. So love that. Thanks for that overview. So talk to us about the Atlas 2 product itself, and just in general, how it improves the world we live in.
Sure.
That's true.
Yeah. Todd, you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll take this one. I mean, the Atlas 2 is, in our opinion, it's the ultimate sailing instrument. It combines a state-of-the-art L1, L5 GNSS receiver with a very precise magnetic compass, has orientation sensors, So we can determine the velocity and the orientation of the boat that it's attached to with a very high degree of accuracy. It has a customizable sunlight readable display that really looks phenomenal out in the water. We have waterproof speakers, an LED array that the users can configure to indicate different things to them, and just give them that real-time feedback that we've all been craving. The environment that the Atlas has to operate in is incredibly hostile. Salt water, sunlight, and sailors themselves are quite abusive. So it had to be pretty rugged and waterproof. And thanks to it has a wireless charging system that really facilitates that. And of course, the kind of cherry on top is it has a battery that has an endurance of 100 hours, which for what we do is perfect.
Yeah, our customers love that because they can go, some of our customers will do a longer distance race that might last a couple of days. They don't have to worry about recharging the unit. But most of our customers will go into a multi-day regatta. They don't even think about charging it every night. They know it's going to last the whole event. And that just having that peace of mind is awesome. And I think, the other thing is now the expectation within the sailing community is to have that kind of capability, both in terms of having all those functions integrated, having that long battery life. That's the new bar for what people expect out of an instrument. When we started, the kind of products that were available, had AA batteries that you had to change just about every day. They had displays that you couldn't read with polarized sunglasses on, which of course everybody wants to wear on the water. And they were generally single purpose products that just did one or two things instead of having all this capability. And so it's been kind of neat, to take a step back from time to time and sort of reflect on, we've really moved the bar on what people expect out of an instrument. And, I think from our side, we're just getting started. There's still a lot more to go. But it's been really cool to see how the communities embrace that and start to recognize the value in having an instrument that has all this extra capability, be able to learn on the water, be able to collect data, be able to share with other sailors. And that's, ultimately allowing sailors to, share and improve and work together, even if they're not in the same geographic area, which is really cool.
Awesome. So part of the improvement of the world is just allowing people who have this passion for sailing to become even better at what they do, and heighten their skill set when they're on the water. I'm sure getting out in nature as well is, I know it's a passion of both of yours. Was that also the intent? Like, how can we create a product that helps connect technology and nature and encourage people to get out and explore what this amazing earth we live in has to offer?
That's certainly one of the joys of sailing, is that it really is the intersection of those two things, right? It's your ability to sort of be outside, be with nature, and kind of enjoy the forces of nature, and the ability to observe from that. It's the sort of fusion of technology, and sailing can, even though it's been around for a long time, it is always advancing. And then just, your personal connection with your body and your skills to make the boat go. And all that kind of comes together, and it's why it's such an enjoyable sport for so many people around the world.
I think it's a sport that you can do your whole life and never master. There's always something more to learn. There's always something new. And every time you go out, it's a little bit different because it's so dependent on the conditions, the weather, the wind, the waves. So, every time you go out, even if you're in the same exact body of water you were in last time on the same boat, it's still a different experience. So I think, those are all things we love about the sport. And our customers, they span the range from, folks that are really just doing this recreationally, and maybe they just want the instrument to tell them how fast they're going, or, help them improve a little bit, but they're not necessarily out there competing against other sailors, all the way up to Olympic programs that are training for the 2024 games. And they really rely on the data that comes from the device to help, gauge their performance, improve, track their performance relative to other sailors on their team, or the data analysts that are looking at the sailor performance and trying to figure out, which training strategies are working best. So, I think that's one of the challenges for us, but also one of the things that's really neat is that we're working with people that span the spectrum of sailing, which we really enjoy.
So fantastic. Awesome. Thanks for that overview, guys. So now transitioning a little bit into the actual manufacturing and building of the device and your initial engagement with Seacomp. Talk to us just in general, what did you hire Seacomp to do? What services were you looking from a contract manufacturing partner?
Yeah, so we came into this, with an existing product, the Atlas One, which in a lot of ways is very similar to the Atlas Two, but we had reached a point with that product where we knew we wanted to upgrade a couple of things. There was some new sensor technology, and it's in particular the L1, L5 GPS receivers that we really wanted to incorporate. And then there was a few other things we wanted to add, like the LED array, wireless charging. And so we were at a stage where we wanted to evolve that product, but we also wanted to take all the hard-won lessons that we had gotten from manufacturing that product and having it out on the water with customers all over the world. And so when we were looking for a manufacturing partner, we were looking for someone who both had skills and could bring a lot to offer in terms of helping us advance the design, make it easier to manufacture, more efficient to manufacture, but also someone who was going to be able to look at what we'd already done and take in some of those lessons as well. And so that those two things really brought us to Seacomp. And I think on that front, it's worked out, really well to have, Seacomp took a lot of time understanding the design of the Atlas One, learning a lot of the lessons from us that we had gotten, and then carrying that forward into the Atlas Two.
Awesome. Anything to add there, Todd?
Yeah, it's been a learning curve for us, and having a partner to really help us there makes a huge difference. And I'm glad we went that route instead of continuing to just try to do it ourselves. I'm thankful for the experience of building the Atlas One. I'm also thankful that we don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
So
and Jake, you had touched on that, and Todd, you just alluded to it as well. I know that you guys yourselves essentially built the Atlas One products. You were actually involved in the physical assembly of those products. Can you talk about what that was like versus now using a CM partner to manage the assembly?
Yeah, so for the Atlas One, primarily so that we were able to bootstrap the company up to the scale that we are at now, we had chosen to do final assembly ourselves. So we had, a bunch of suppliers we were working with who were providing, sub-assemblies or different components of the product. We were actually doing the final assembly and testing ourselves. And I can't say I recommend that route, but I also know that we wouldn't be where we are today if we hadn't been able to make that happen, just because it was necessary to scale the company up. And I think we learned a tremendous amount about what goes into building a product, and we have a much greater appreciation for the work that happens at Seacomp, having been through that process ourselves. So it's made, having done that with the Atlas One, made working with Seacomp, designing the Atlas Two, working through the manufacturing process, I think that made that go a lot smoother, and we got to a good result a lot quicker than we would have if we hadn't had that experience. So I'm glad we don't do it anymore. It's been really nice to be able to shift our focus to other aspects of the business. But I'm also glad we have that experience under our belts.
There's other challenges too, just with the current events, right? The challenges of the supply chain and navigating that without a partner who's, more leveraged to do so would have also been very difficult. So it's a lot of variables, and I'm glad where we are at now. So absolutely.
And when we first met, that appreciation for the manufacturing process was evident because you guys had gone through building the Atlas One yourselves. And it probably gave you some good context in terms of what is most important for the manufacturing partner we're going to select, as well as what should we be concerned about, or what are we most worried about of now relinquishing some of that control and assembly to a separate partner. Can you speak to that as part of the selection process? What did you need? What were you worried about?
Sure. Yeah. So, I think there's a few things that are specific to the Atlas Two and the environment it goes into, and then there's just some broader factors that are evident across the electronics market today. But to the Atlas Two specifically, as Todd mentioned earlier, the environment it goes into is incredibly harsh for a piece of electronics. These devices are out, on boats, in many times in salt water, literally getting blasted. Waves are hitting them. Sailors are running into them. It's a rough environment to put a piece of electronics in. And it's not like it goes out there once and its job is done. It goes out there day after day after day, and people expect these devices to last for years. And so knowing those environmental requirements, means that there's a lot of pressure on various aspects of the design, in terms of waterproofing, in terms of UV resistance, in terms of making sure that the display is both rugged but also incredibly easy to read in the sun. There's a lot that goes into all that. And we address a lot of that on the design side, but many of those things also have to be addressed, and validated during the manufacturing process. So making sure the devices are sealed, for example, and are going to, last for years in this harsh environment is something that, there's a lot of parts of the manufacturing process that have to be done very carefully and done with a high degree of reliability to achieve that. And so that was one of the things we were looking for in a manufacturing partner, someone who had, the process control necessary to do that and the understanding of, products that go into that kind of environment. And so, as we talked to different, potential manufacturing partners, we were asking a lot of questions about, tell us what other products you've built that have gone to harsh environments. Tell us what other products you've built that have, complicated manufacturing requirements. And so that was one of the areas that we looked at. Another area is, the precision of the measurements that the Atlas II has to make to deliver the data that it does to the sailor requires a pretty extensive calibration process. And that's something we had developed internally and had confidence in our own ability to execute. But taking that process that we had developed, transferring it, to a manufacturing partner and having it be something that they could set up in a repeatable way was an area we had a lot of concerns about. And we got there with Seacomp, but it definitely took some work on both sides to make that happen. But in the end, I'm thrilled with the results that we're getting. The Atlas II is the best compass you can buy for a sailboat. It is that accurate, and that comes back to that calibration process that we've developed with Seacomp. So those are kind of the areas that are specific to the Atlas II. And then as Todd mentioned, the bigger picture, it's just an incredibly difficult time in the electronics market. Lead times keep going up and up and up. As much success as we've had, we're still a small company within the electronics market. So we don't have the market share to, command, delivery of components in the way that you might if you were a larger company. And so that was the other side of this, was finding a manufacturing partner who had the experience and the ability, to work with their suppliers to help make sure that we got the components that we needed and got them delivered on time was a big piece of this as well. So, those were all challenges that we looked at and evaluated, different potential partners on.
Awesome. Todd, anything else on that point?
The only thing to add would be just the ability to scale is something new for us, and it's something now we're capable of because of Seacomp. Before, we just couldn't really build fast enough, and it caused a lot of problems for our business. And so now to know that we can produce in really whatever volume is necessary, that is really encouraging for us and for our business. So.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Yeah, the point that stuck out to me when you were talking, Jake, especially, was the collaboration piece of it. You had already developed certain test processes, calibration processes, and you needed to ensure that the partner was going to implement those so your device could perform like it was intended to do. And not only that, but that it could perform in an environment that is very, very rugged and has to withstand the elements. So I know that in the early stages of the partnership, collaboration was a big piece of what was important to you and what's obviously important to us as a manufacturing partner, because we both need to achieve that spec and have the product come out and do what it's intended to do to achieve mutual success. It's important for both of us. So love that. So, we've been working together now for about 1.5 years or so, give or take. And it's a long journey, right? To get through product development into manufacturing. There are a lot of challenges that you have to overcome. So just in all candor, working with Seacomp so far, what's worked really well and what could be improved moving forward?
Yeah. So, I think, you go back to the beginning. I think one of the things that I really appreciated and I think has paid dividends over the whole program was the work that Seacomp did in understanding our Atlas I product. Even though we were not proposing that you built the Atlas I as it was, we were already planning to evolve that into a new design. The work that went on to understand that, understand the lessons we had learned, and understand what had worked well, what hadn't, I think really, carried forward and helped, with the development and design on the Atlas II, and allowed CComp to give us a lot of great, insight and advice and suggestions on places where we could tweak or improve the design, either to make it more reliable or easier to manufacture, easier to test. And I think, that really helped set us up for success on the front end, was having that, coming in with that understanding. And then, Derek, as you alluded to, the collaboration has been really important, but also really challenging in the current environment. Under normal circumstances, pre-COVID, we would have gone to the factory and been on site for some of the test builds or the early manufacturing runs and been able to work hand in hand to address a problem that might have come up or an issue with testing. And we haven't been able to do that because it's not possible for us to travel right now. We simply cannot even get into the country, let alone into the factory due to the COVID restrictions. And so, I think that's been a learning curve on both sides, for us and for CComp, figuring out, okay, how do we work together, across a huge time zone difference, language differences, when we can't be on site. And I'm really happy with how that's turned out. And I think now that we've kind of established a way of working together and, a way for the factory to really quickly and easily ask us questions and for us to respond quickly when something does come up, I think that's ultimately a really positive step because it lowers the barrier for the factory when they do need some help or some input from us. Now they've got a great way to communicate and share what's going on. Whereas before, maybe that would have been a little bit more difficult because the expectation would have been that we'd have to be on site to look at something like that. So that's been a challenge, but one that we just have had to navigate in the current environment. But overall, really happy with where we ended up on the Atlas II. The work that went into the calibration process, there's a lot of back and forth on that. Even something as simple as finding the right place within the factory to do that work where we didn't have any interference coming from other pieces of equipment nearby. The factory's been great, and CComp has been great in helping us, navigate that and being willing to try something, because we couldn't be there to try it with them, right? So they kind of had to do some experimentation on our behalf. So I've been super thrilled with that, and I think we've gotten to a really good place in the end.
Yeah, Jake, I think that's a great point that you made. It is really an unprecedented time in that regard, where when we would be building those pre-production units, ramping towards manufacturing, that is usually when the customer comes, is on site, working with CComp production engineering, dialing in the final assembly items so that we can have a successful launch. And that all had to be done virtually, which, like you said, was had some challenges, but we're able to get through it to where we are today. So really appreciate that feedback. Todd, anything from your side?
No, I thought Jake covered it well.
Awesome. Well, I think that wraps up our discussion with regard to Vicaros and CComp, and really appreciate your time. But before we go, if one of you could let our viewers know where they could learn more about Vicaros and the Atlas II product.
Sure. You just go to our website, vicaros.com, and there you can learn all about our product and what it's used for, and follow our social media channels to see our customers having a great time on the water using it. So.
Awesome. Very cool. So with that, Jake and Todd, thank you so much for your time today. And for our viewers, and especially those viewers who have a love for sailing, check out the Vicaros website, check out their social, learn more about their Atlas II product. It's incredible. We'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, Derek. We appreciate it.